This is the story of a young man who single-handedly used to satisfy all the women of a single family. However, a day eventually came when circumstances forced him to abandon them all and flee. What exactly happened to this young man? We will find out in this video. Let's begin. The story opens in a desolate location far removed from the city. A young man named James was driving to another city. James's friends were planning to throw a party in that city, and James was on his way to join the festivities. His friends had already arrived, but James had some urgent matters to attend to, so he was traveling alone. Meanwhile, James's friends had completed all the preparations for the party. They had even invited women who, for a fee, would provide gratification to the men. James's friends wanted to have the time of their lives at the party, so in addition to the women, they had also arranged a supply of alcohol. Back on the road, James's car developed a mechanical issue, causing his progress toward his friends to slow to a crawl. In the midst of this, his car suddenly stalled. James realized that the engine had overheated. He tried to cool it down, but the car still refused to start. To make matters worse, there was no mobile phone signal at the spot where James was stranded, which only compounded his difficulties. After giving it some thought, James decided to proceed on foot. He was hopeful that he would eventually find someone to help him further down the road, enabling him to finally reach his friends. After walking for a while, James arrived at a large house. As soon as he approached the door, it opened of its own accord. Upon entering, a woman approached James. Her name was Luna. James explained his situation to her, telling her that his car had broken down and that he needed to call his mechanic. Hearing his story, Luna first suggested that he take a moment to rest, as James appeared thoroughly exhausted. She leads James into a room and offers him some juice to drink. Luna explains to him that this house is her farmhouse. It is situated right in the middle of the forest. Since there is no phone signal here, she doesn't even own a phone herself. Just then, hearing a noise, she heads outside. As soon as she leaves, Luna's maid approaches James. She wanted to tell James something, but at that very moment, Luna called her over. James, too, followed them outside. Luna's entire family had also arrived at the place. Her family consisted of her husband and her young adult daughter. A short while later, they were all sitting together sharing a meal. Luna's husband's name was Omar, and her daughter's name was Romy. Luna had already told her family about James, and they treated him as their guest. Romy's lustful gaze kept drifting towards James repeatedly. Over dinner, Omar mentioned to James that he had a great passion for hunting. Consequently, he visits the farmhouse every month to hunt to his heart's content. As they chatted, everyone began to drink alcohol. As he drank, James's eyes too began to wander towards Romy. James incidentally had a vivid imagination. Under the influence of the alcohol, he began to fantasize that Romy would come to him that night and they would share an intimate encounter. After fantasizing about Romy, he turned his gaze towards Luna. Upon seeing Luna, he indulged in another fantasy, that later that night, while Omar was making fireworks inside Luna's cave, he would join them and the three of them would have a wild time. Lost in such thoughts, he eventually drifted off to sleep in one of the rooms. The next morning, when James awoke, he noticed several new faces in the house. He was astonished to see these newcomers, and they in turn were equally surprised to see James. Luna hurriedly beckoned him to come over. Complying with her request, James went and took a seat alongside the others. Omar introduces everyone to James, explaining that these people are his and Luna's relatives. Afterwards, he also introduces James to the group. Luna and Omar's relatives had come here to spend their holidays. Luna's older sister was named Julia, and she appeared to be quite robust in appearance. While they were all chatting, more people arrived at the scene. These newcomers were also relatives of Luna and Omar. As soon as they arrived, Luna served food for everyone, whereupon everyone eagerly dug in. Omar's father had also returned home. The moment James laid his eyes on him, he was taken aback. James found both Omar and Luna to be rather mysterious figures, so he decided he wanted to speak to Omar's father about them. But as soon as he followed him, he found that the man had vanished from sight. The entire house now began to feel eerie to James. He let his imagination wander again, and this time he envisioned a witch, a creature that fed human blood. Terrified by this vision of a witch, James fled straight into Luna's room. Luna happened to be alone in the room at that moment. She invited James to sit down beside her. James complied and took a seat next to her, after which Luna began reading aloud to him from a book. The book contained an erotic story, and that is exactly what Luna was reading to James. As she read, Luna became so aroused that she began to expose her breasts to James. Just then, Luna's sister, Julia, opened the door. Upon seeing her, Luna immediately stopped. Julia was accompanied by 2 other women. Upon seeing Julia, James excused himself and left the room, after which Julia began to berate Luna. The 2 women then led James into another room. These 2 ladies were also relatives of Luna. They were berating James because he had been caught with Luna. James had begun to weep, and seeing him cry, both ladies felt pity for him. They hurriedly shut the door and then proceeded to relieve James. Julia was standing near the door at this moment. Hearing James's heated moans, she realized exactly what was transpiring inside. A short while later, when she opened the door, the ladies departed. Seeing James in such a state, Julia, too, felt aroused. She quickly approached James and proceeded to relieve him as well. Meanwhile, Luna's maid was worried about James. She wanted to help him, but she was also afraid of Luna. Elsewhere, having been relieved by Julia, James had stepped outside. He managed to catch a faint signal on his phone, but just as he attempted to make a call, the signal vanished once again. At that moment, Omar approached James and led him into his store. Omar's store was stocked with a great deal of liquor, and he wanted to show it to James. Pointing to the alcohol, he explained that his wife Luna and her female relatives were insatiably thirsty. Whenever they spotted a young man, they would not let him go until they had had their fill. James was astonished by Omar's words, and just then, 2 of Omar's relatives approached them. They too wanted to spend some time with James, so they took him away with them. Omar's 2 relatives led James to the back of the house. They began to play a prank on James, pretending that they were going to kill him and bury him right there in a pit. Omar's relatives were actually planning to plant a tree in that pit. However, the moment they ordered James to start digging, he managed to scare them off and fled the scene. Meanwhile, Julia was sitting with her 2 female relatives. When James, running frantically, finally reached her, she beckoned him to come closer. James, however, was terrified, so he fled from that spot as well. His flight eventually led him back inside the house. He desperately wanted to escape the premises, but he found that several people were sitting right at the main gate. Upon entering the house, James spotted Omar's father. The man motioned for James to sit down and confided in him, saying, "I have grown utterly fed up with my family. My immediate family and all my relatives are completely unhinged. Whenever they visit, they behave like lunatics. Sometimes they bring along a bevy of girls, and then everyone indulges in debauchery with them. Other times they bring in a group of boys and engage in acts with them. This time, you have fallen into their clutches. Luna and her female relatives will first have their fun with you, and then they will kill you before leaving this place. However, I do not want anyone to die here this time." James listened intently to every word. Just then, there was a sound at the door. As soon as James opened it, he found Luna's maidservant standing before him. Luna's maid, too, wanted to help James escape the house, so she took him by the hand and began to lead him out. Before the maid could successfully get James out of the house, Omar and his relatives spotted James. They immediately seized him and began to beat him mercilessly. Omar's father heard James's screams. Having already resolved to help James, he now rushed towards the commotion. Upon reaching James, he unleashed his fury on his son, Omar, and all the other relatives. He ruthlessly beat and killed anyone who stood in his path. In a matter of moments, Omar's father had killed every single person present in the house, while the women of the household watched in horror and began to weep. In the end, James managed to escape the house, and Omar's father felt a deep sense of satisfaction for having saved him. And with that, this story comes to an end. Thank you very much for watching our video. If you enjoyed the movie, please be sure to give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more movies like this.